Welcome, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2024 Subaru Forester Wilderness, and that's the 2024 Subaru Crosstrek Wilderness. And today in this side-by-side comparison review, I get to show you which of these Subaru Wilderness trims might be the right one for you. They're similarly priced, they're similarly sized, and they both have a lot to offer. The Wilderness lineup of these different models, I think, has really enticed a lot of people to consider a Subaru that maybe otherwise wouldn't. They're off-road capable, aesthetically pleasing, and they're just different than the normal Forester, the normal Crosstrek. And if you're new to my channel, I actually owned a Crosstrek for 2 years and 40,000 miles. Since then, I've owned an Outback Wilderness for 2 years and almost 30,000 miles. So between driving dozens of these on my channel and actually owning a couple of them, I have a lot of experience, a lot of bum time in the seats, and there's a lot that I want to share with you if you're a potential buyer, and a lot of things that you should know in this side-by-side comparison of specs and experiences. So let's dive right in. And big thanks to Twin Falls Subaru for letting me borrow dozens of their Subarus to review for you guys. Both of these actually share a lot of commonalities, such as they both have at least 5 trim levels. They start at a rather affordable base price. There's plenty of standard safety features. They each have an aggressively geared CVT transmission, all-wheel drive, over 9 inches of ground clearance, a 411 final drive ratio with all-terrain Yokohama Geolandar tires, and a 2.5 liter boxer engine, just to name a few. We also can't forget that they have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But there's some differences that I need to share, some numbers we need to talk about, and I'll show you some back-to-back comparisons so you have all you need in one place. The Subaru Forester first came to North America back in 1997. We're currently in the 5th generation that started in 2019. This 2024 is the 6th year of the 5th gen, and it's anticipated that there's gonna be a new 6th generation of the Subaru Forester next year. However, this one did have a refreshed front end back in 2022 when the Wilderness trim level came out, and if you're looking to buy one of these, a base Forester 6 trim levels starts as low as $27,000 before destination. But if you're gonna consider the Wilderness, you need to know that this one starts about $35,000. And last year in North America, or should I say for 2022, because that year is finalized, it sold 114,000 units, which interestingly enough is down from 154,000 the year before. However, the Crosstrek first came out to North America in 2013. This 2024 is the first year of the 3rd generation, although it shares a lot of similar design language to the 2nd generation, which for 2022 sold a whopping 155,000 units in North America. But these are fresh, they're exciting, they have a lot of really good colors offered on this new generation, and the Wilderness is the apex of the new generation. It's the top trim level of the 5. But if you're considering a base Crosstrek, you need to know that it starts at about $25,000, and then a Wilderness starts at about $32,000. After destination and goodies, this one's about $34,000. Interestingly enough, these both share the same wheel size. It's a 225/60/17, which is one size smaller than the Outback Wilderness, which is a 225/65/17. These Yokohama Geolandar all-terrain tires do phenomenally well, especially in the winter. They're Snowflake Mountain Peak rated. I've had them on my Outback Wilderness for 28,000 miles. They still have a 1/4 inch of tread. The Forester has a full-size spare in the back. The Crosstrek only has a temporary, skinny, all-season tire. That's because the Crosstrek is based off of the Impreza platform, which can't fit a full-size spare in the back. Both of these have a lock-in gas door, so when your vehicle's locked, so is the gas door, and no one's gonna be siphoning or stealing your gas, whether to drink or to fill up their own vehicle. And then they each have a 16.6 gallon tank with a very similar total range rating. Let's start with the Forester. It's rated at about 25 city, 28 highway, so its max range is about 464, whereas the Crosstrek is rated for 25 city, 29 highway, so that extra MPG on the highway means it can go up to 481 miles between Phillips, and they each take 87 octane. And then both of these look identical under the hood and have the same power plant, except for the Forester gets the premium engine cover. Otherwise, we're gonna hop over to the Crosstrek because it shows a little bit more. This 2.5 liter boxer makes 182 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and about 176 foot-pound-feet of torque, but you have to rev it out to about 4,400 RPM to get that. It's a really good layout. All the reservoirs, everything's up top, easy to get to, easy to identify, and then they have a top-mount oil filter, so if you're off-roading, you're not gonna knock that off. and run your engine dry in oil, which is one of the fastest ways to ruin your engine. So I'm really impressed with this layout. Most maintenance items are pretty easy on this, but where it only makes 182 horsepower and the density altitude where I live is almost 5,000 feet, that means these engines are usually down on power about 20%, essentially making only about 140 horsepower. So their 0 to 60 ratings are usually very similar between the Forester and the 2.5 liter Crosstrek, because it doesn't weigh that much more, as you'll hear soon. But they usually do a mid 8-second up to about a 10-second 0 to 60. Depending on temperature and specific density altitude. Whereas the Turbo Outback Wilderness is usually in the low to high 6s, depending on the altitude as well. The Forester Wilderness weighs about 3,600 pounds. It has a payload capacity of 900 pounds, so you can carry 900 pounds worth of people or stuff on this platform. And then because it's a wilderness, it can tow about 3,000 pounds, whereas the regular non-wilderness Forester can only tow a measly 1,500 pounds. It has 9.2 inches of ground clearance, a final drive ratio of 411, a 23.5 degree approach angle, 25.4 degree departure angle, and then a 21 degree breakover angle. And then the Crosstrek weighs only 3,400 pounds. It has the same 900 pound payload capacity, but it can actually tow more at 3,500 pounds, which, because that weighs more than the vehicle itself, and this is a unibody crossover after all, I'd be hesitant to try to tow that much personally. But it has 9.3 inches of ground clearance, a 411 final drive ratio, and then a slightly less aggressive front approach angle of only 20 degrees, similar to the Outback Wilderness, but it has a more aggressive departure angle, similar to like a Toyota 4Runner. It's 33 degrees, and then it has the same 21 degree breakover angle. And then overall, the external dimensions are very similar. The Crosstrek is 14.7 feet long, 6 feet wide, about 5.3 feet tall. The Forester is basically 15 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 5.5 feet tall. They both have the same 8 3/4 foot wheelbase, and they can both do a full circle in 35.4 feet. That's because these are basically the same Subaru global platform. Hatch height is very similar on both models, but the Crosstrek is manually lifted and lowered. The Forester has the power liftgate and the locking feature. They both have the secret pin code so that you can get in and out of the vehicle without your keys. I have a video on my channel of how to set that. It's a really cool feature. But when you're back here, in the back of your hatchback, the Forester has roughly 29 cubic feet behind the second row. But when you drop the seats, which is pretty easy to do, you have around 74, which is pretty substantial. Remember, it's not super long, but it's still plenty of room, a lot of headroom, so you can car camp back here. And then you have all of your all-weather liners, some bag hooks, a 12 volt, a little bit of storage behind the wheel wells, and then the Harman Kardon sub on the passenger side. Under the all-weather mat, you have some storage. You can put your privacy shade if you have one of those. And then you also have your full-size spare tire with all your tools and your eye bolt hole. So what more could you want on the back of the Forester? Whereas the Crosstrek has about 21 cubic feet of room with the seats up. But when you drop the seats, which you don't have a fancy button to do, you have about 55. So still enough to car camp. You can buy a specific mattress for it, but it's definitely gonna be a lot tighter back here. Otherwise, you have a little bit of storage behind each wheel well with a dog bowl. And then underneath the all-weather mat, there's a little bit of a place I like to call the Snickers storage for when you're changing that temporary spare. Otherwise, you have your scissor jack and all of your tools down here. We're gonna start with the back seat of this autumn green Forester before we head to the front. So, door panel is really nice, all soft touch materials, nice big handle, speaker, bottle snacks, everything you need. A little bit of a Subaru on the door, still some grip. The back seats, they're all StarTechs, of course, and they actually recline on the Forester, which is fantastic. But even when you pull them forward and you sit behind yourself, I'm 5'11". I have that much room in front of my knees. I have probably about an inch of headroom. Ginormous panoramic moonroof to stare out of. LED upgraded lights, they're only flashing on camera, not in person. Ventilation, some plugins, but no heated seats on this one. And then some armrests with cup holders in the center. Overall, it's fantastic. And look at the visibility out of those ginormous windows. Thankfully, they're tinted, so I don't feel like I'm in a fishbowl. The back of the sapphire blue Crosstrek is also a really nice place to be. The door cards and panels are still nice and soft touch, but they're not quite as nice as the Forester's materials. You have a little bit of a mountainous grip on the door sill. StarTech seats, They don't recline, but they're comfortable. When you sit behind yourself, I'm 5'11". I have just a little bit less room in here than in the Forester in its tightest position. I also have about an inch of headroom. No standard sunroof. That's part of the optional package that has the power seats and the speakers. No ventilation, but I do have a USB-C style and B. And thankfully this 3rd gen Crosstrek does have armrests with cup holders in them. Overall, it's really nice, but it's pretty dark in here, and you can tell that the windows are not nearly as big as the Forester. Both of these cars have the proximity key with lock, unlock, hatch release, or in the Forester's case, power liftgate, and then panic button. Leave that in your pocket because you have the proximity key features to lock and unlock the vehicle on both the driver and the shotgun seat door. But when you open it up, the door panel looks really nice. You have the lunar moon landing surface. Nice big door pocket, big door panel, decent sized snack storage with your bottle, your Harman Kardon speakers, and overall, I can't complain too much. There's just a very small Subaru on the door sill. Rubberized Subaru Wilderness mats, aluminum pedals, hood release, fuse box, lighting options, and lighting stock with your power heated StarTech seat that has Subaru Wilderness listed up top. And then sitting inside the Forester is a really nice place to be. You have huge windows again up front. Look how much you can see, how far down on the side. It's easy to find a comfortable position. Leather wrapped wheel. The horn is loud and kind of high pitched. Otherwise, ginormous panoramic roof lets a lot of natural light in. And when you fired right up, the needles dance. Subaru Wilderness appears on the tachometer and it comes to life. You have voice and volume controls on the left, adaptive cruise with your sport and intelligent mode on the right. Basically, sport mode just makes it fake downshift a gear, so you're revving higher, you're in a higher part of the power band. It doesn't really help with 0 to 60, but it helps with rolling acceleration. And then you have your paddle shifters on the back for the CVT. Otherwise, you have the double screen. When you go into the front-facing camera, that actually just pops up on the little screen, but clarity is decent. It is kind of a short but long view. And then when you go into reverse, the backup camera on this Forester actually is a little bit bigger than on the Crosstrek because of the way that it fits the screen. Otherwise, I love all the physical buttons, controls. You still have a CD player, physical buttons for HVAC, your plugins, your 12-volt, your aux, piano black around the shifter, electronic parking brake, auto vehicle hold, your deep snow and mud, and your regular snow and dirt, so level 2X mode, front-facing camera, heated seats, cup holders, CD storage, and then a 12-volt in the center console. I will say the Crosstrek center console is actually a little bit bigger. And then up top, you have auto-dimming mirrors, HomeLink setup. You have your turn signals right there. Your blind spot monitoring right there. LED lighting on this upgraded kit, sunglass holder, and with that said, let's turn it off. Let's hop in the Crosstrek. The door panel on the Crosstrek, again, is nice, but it's not quite as nice as the Forester. Thankfully, it's still very soft touch. Big giant hands could fit in that handle. Bottle holder, a smaller snack pocket, unnamed speaker, nothing on the door sill. You have Subaru Wilderness all-weather mats, rubberized pedals, hood release, fuse box. No extra options on this, which on the Forester, they were basically just the power liftgate related. Knee airbag, lighting stock, manually adjusted seats because this doesn't have the power seat option, and then Subaru Wilderness inside on the headrest. Sitting inside the Crosstrek is still a really nice place to be, but it's noticeably a little bit tighter than the Forester was. I'm still very comfortable at under 6 feet. I don't think you're gonna have any trouble, but if you're over 6 feet, I would definitely recommend you test drive one before you just place an order for one. The window is definitely a bit smaller than the Forester, but you still have turn signals. The little nub for blind spot monitoring, I honestly prefer the bigger section that was on the 2nd gen Crosstrek. Leather wrapped wheel, paddle shifters for the 8 simulated gears if you want to play musical simulated gears. The horn is very high pitched. And then you have info buttons and voice controls on the left, adaptive cruise on the right. And when we fired right up with the push button start, the needles dance, Subaru Wilderness appears, and it comes to life. This is the 11.6-inch screen. To get into X mode, you have to access that through the screen, but you can change some of the widgets up top, which is pretty cool. I don't love the auto start stop. I always turn it off in mine. You pretty quickly make that become muscle memory if you don't like that feature. But I don't like it as much as the Forester's smaller screen. I don't like that the HVAC controls are basically tied into it. You have plugins, aux, wireless charging, piano black around the shifter. When you go into reverse, this is your camera. It's kind of distorted from the film on the screen right now, but I don't think it's any better than the Forester. And then electronic parking brake, heated seats, no front facing camera, just a blank button on your Apex Crosstrek. What's up with that? Cup holders, 12 volt. And then because Subaru basically carried over the center console to save money, there's still a CD tray right there. Some touring trim levels of Subarus actually do have a CD player in the center console, but not on this one. No plugins either, but it is substantially bigger than the Forester. Otherwise, up top, you have your garage door buttons, your auto-dimming mirrors for the rear and the side. I love that feature on mine. LED upgrade lighting. You have the slide, because this itself doesn't slide out. And then LED lighting with your mirror right there. Otherwise, let's turn it off and hop out. We're gonna start to wrap things up, and I should mention I'm not gonna have a driving portion of this video because you can find the driving impressions on any of my regular car reviews. They're basically the same platform. The Forester weighs 200 pounds more. It's a couple inches larger in certain dimensions, but overall they're basically very similar, so they drive very similarly. Some of the pros of the Crosstrek is it's new, it's exciting, and people have been waiting for this ever since the very first Forester and Outback Wilderness were announced a couple years ago. It has cooler colors with this new generation. It gets 1 mile per gallon better on the highway. It has a drastically better departure angle. It's almost $3 grand cheaper when you don't get the speaker moonroof power seat package. And the current Crosstrek is a slightly better seller at about 40,000 more units per year, at least in the last recorded year. Whereas the Forester has a better driving position and better visibility out of the windows. It's slightly safer, being a top safety pick plus rather than the Crosstrek's regular top safety pick rating. It just feels like an old school square SUV that has way more standard features such as the superior moonroof, the Harman Kardon speakers, the front facing camera, the 700-pound roof rail rating for rooftop tents and other cargo capacity to carry. It has a better approach angle, better infotainment, which is just my opinion. It has an actual better skid plate, although aftermarket options are still going to be better. And then it has less cladding from the factory. With all that said, these are honestly both phenomenal options, and I've said it before, but if the Forester offered a turbo engine, I would likely buy that over my Outback Wilderness. But this is about you and for you guys, so which one are you leaning towards? Comment below, and if you enjoyed my review and you want to see more videos like this, please consider liking my video. Subscribe if you want to watch more. I post a couple times a week, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Take care.